Hello and welcome to The Secret of My Success, the podcast and video channel where we explore what it means to live a fulfilling life. I am your host, Erin Curran. Thanks for joining us today. Today, my guest is Hope Long. She is the founder of The Social CEO. She's a marketing strategist to help high-achieving coaches and course creators generate more revenue and amplify their impact without compromising their authenticity. The vision of the Social CEO is to create a world where every entrepreneur and business leader harnesses the power of their unique voice and digital presence to inspire, connect, and thrive in the digital age. Hope, welcome. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I always love to talk to you.
I know, it's great. We met through one of the women's networking Facebook groups. And I have just loved your vibe since I saw you. I connected with you right away. I really love that authenticity aspect that you bring because everybody who works with you, everybody in your group, like they know that like what you see is what you get.
Yeah, 100%. That's part of, yeah, it's one of like our core values and stuff, but it's also part of like this movement that we're seeing online right now where people are just showing up as themselves. Like it's so much less filtered now than it has been. So I like to be part of that movement, and I agree with that movement.
Me too. I am in. You don't need to sell me on that for sure. Well, and I think that it's important because, like there are so many options. We are inundated with opportunities, people to work with, models to follow. And I think that nobody really has a corner, nobody has the market cornered in any one particular way. What we see online is there are myriad ways, millions of ways to be able to skin that same cat, so to speak. And it's like, it's all about how you feel comfortable expressing. So I think it's brilliant. There are going to be certain people that want to work with somebody like you that, like you're kind of like me. I tell people, if you don't like profanity, don't buy my book.
Yes, yes. I love it. And you're right. There's a million ways to skin a cat to get the results that we're looking for, whether it's in the marketing world, maybe it's in the sales industry, maybe it's in the healthcare industry, whatever industry it is. There's a million ways to get what you want, which is wonderful. Opportunity is wonderful. But what's more wonderful is that people are stepping outside of these boxes that we've previously been inside of, right? Especially when it comes to like this, there's certain ways to do X, Y, and Z. There's a certain, everybody has their own methodology, I guess. And there's always been accepted methodologies that we've used for like 50 years for some of the same things. But what's really great is that people are putting their spin on these things, right? We're recreating the old. I wouldn't say we're reinventing the wheel, but we're turning the old ways into our own. And then that's part of like alignment and like finding out who you are and what you actually want and how you actually feel and acknowledging those things.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should mention the analogy of the wheel because on the one hand, we don't reinvent the circle. We don't reinvent the wheel, but the wheels that we have now are not the same as the wheels that we had 150 years ago. So, in a manner of speaking, we are reinventing the wheel. It's just more a question of, are you talking about function or are you talking about form? And
Yeah.
I think this is where we get to play a little bit because so many of the rules that we had 150 years ago with like Little House on the Prairie, they don't apply. We're not fending off wolves. We're not protecting our cattle. We're not, growing our own foods. It's a completely different world. And so while I love the idea of honoring and preserving aspects of what has come before, there is also growth, renewal, regeneration, new experiences. So, like, how can we have it all?
Oh, how can we have it all? However we want, truthfully. Like, and I that might be a stretch for some people. Some people might disagree with that. I think you get to choose. Like you get to choose so much of, kind of like how you choose your friends, right? You choose who your friends are, you choose the dog that you have, you choose the career that you have, you choose the job, you choose to be an entrepreneur, you choose all these things. And so like if you have this big lengthy list of having it all, right? And maybe it's a house. I have a house with a white picket fence, and that used to be like what I thought was having it all, right? And like then I got it and I was like, there's more. Like there could be more out there. And like I'm always like looking and stretching and growing. But like this idea of have it all is you get to choose and you get to choose how. That's why there's so many opportunities, like all these coaches, all these courses that you can take, all these degrees that you could have, all these job opportunities that are out there, career paths, right? I think you can have it all, but you also have to part of having it all is recognizing what's in alignment for you, right? So and I didn't know that for a really long time. So part of my story is being an alcoholic and being in recovery. And so I didn't recognize that power, I guess, within yourself to be able to choose what's in alignment, to be able to actually feel how you feel and have I had the awareness of how I felt, but I didn't really want to recognize it. I didn't want to give it any attention, right? So when you want to have it all, you have to have you have to choose what's in alignment for you, right?
I think that's really powerful because when you say choosing, we think, well, I choose whether I want chocolate or vanilla ice cream. I choose whether I want Thai or Mexican. I choose whether I want to go shopping or go to the movies. But the reality is, like you say, being an alcoholic, choosing that next drink, choosing to sit and watch Netflix instead of editing, my video conversations, choosing to eat the cheesecake over the salad. Each and every little choice is a pebble that fills up that jar.
Yep.
So, how do you come to terms with choices that you make?
Ooh, like in the current situation, or how did I come to terms with my past choices? Because those are two different stories.
I actually, maybe we should dive into the past a little bit so that we can get more of a context because I imagine that your experience back then helped to create where you are now. Would that be a fair thing to say?
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. So, okay. Wow. This one's a big one, right? So, hold on to your seat. So, I I don't even know where to begin because it's not something that I usually like openly talk about a lot on podcasts. So, first of all, you kind of got me with the deer in the headlights. But so I made a lot of poor choices, right? And I'll be the first person to admit that. And I'm okay. Like, I'm okay that I fucked up, right? I don't know if I can say the F word on here,
Absolutely.
but I'm okay with, I'm not okay. Let's see, where we go. I'm okay today with the choices that I previously made because it doesn't benefit me or anybody else to continue to live in that mindset of shame, guilt, remorse, uh, negative self talk, because that's who I used to be, like on a
Mhm.
daily basis. And I couldn't get away from her, right? And I also didn't want to acknowledge her, right? And so I was in this perpetual cycle of masking, right? Externally, while internally, I was in a lot of turmoil. And so I was making poor choices, kind of like a self fulfilling prophecy. So I kept making choices that kept me in that dark place because at that time I didn't choose to believe that there was more or that I could be more, right? I chose to have those experiences, um and and live that kind of life for a really long time. And I'm in some ways I'm glad I did. Like I've done some terrible things. I'm not going to sugarcoat this, you know. I first of all, I don't want you guys to go out and get a DUI. Don't spend any time in jail. I did both of those things, right? I wasn't a very present mother for when Zane was younger. My parents had to step in and help me out. I put myself in some really scary situations where it was life threatening and also very traumatic emotionally and mentally and physically. So I don't want you guys to choose that, right? But because I did, I now have this different level of awareness of the power that I hold over today, over the choices today. And when you're getting sober, that's something that starts to bubble up, right? So all this 10 years I spent suppressing this person that I was afraid to choose. I was afraid to choose. Honestly, it came down to this fear of having power, of being in control of my life, right? Of making choices for myself and nobody else, and like all these fears come up, right? But I spent so long suppressing that. So when I started to get a clear head, when I started to just tweak my choices a little bit, like the littlest choice of, okay, I am going to get up at 6 a.m. today, no matter what, and maybe I'll just read for a little bit. Like it was that when you're getting sober, you like relearn how to be a human. It's very weird. Because normally 6 a.m. is, okay, I'm going to pop this beer. I got to get ready real quick. And then I got to go pretend to be a functioning person. And like the mask comes on as soon as you get up, right? So when you're getting sober, you have to relearn how to be human, or at least pieces of who you used to be before you had all the trauma and all those terrible experiences and we're making all the bad choices. But um in dealing, you asked me, how do you deal with the choices that you make? And what I realized is choice can sound really heavy, and it can be kind of heavy because there's heavy choices. Not all choices are created equal, I think. um and I think that looking back, when I was choosing to get sober, when I was choosing to become a different version of myself, that was that was a choice out of necessity because I didn't want to die. The fear, the pain, the anguish over not continuing to be on earth was greater than continuing to be the person that I was currently being. And a lot of times we make choices based on pain and pleasure, which is part, me and my marketing brain, right? Let me slip in a little bit of marketing there. But we make choices based on pain and pleasure. And I was in a lot of pain. I was in a lot of pain. And so I chose out of pain, right? But today I choose out of pleasure because I also know it's a choice.
Yes, that's super powerful. First of all, thank you.
Yeah, it's like that's not something I talk about a lot. And I still have twinges and moments of, oh wow, like that's so embarrassing. Or like, oh wow, like
No,
what, I can't believe I did that. And oh, what a shame that I wasted time. And oh, what a shame that I da 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 da. Of
yeah,
course, those thoughts still come up.
right.
But if if nothing would have ever changed, oh my God, my life would be so different. I probably wouldn't
Seriously,
have my little boy, right? I probably wouldn't be able to be on here with you and expressing like this story and making a bigger difference than just drinking my bottle of vodka a day, right?
right. Wow. Well, and what you point to is really powerful because we think of choice in such a loaded kind of a fashion, and what most people, especially myself, go to is, what, it's not my fault. It's because trauma, experience, person, situation. And yes, that has an impact. And in that moment that you were facing that lion, tiger, parent, teacher, whatever, that choice made sense. But the brain, a human brain, is designed to shortcut things. And if that response appears to have made sense when you were 5, and you're continuing to do it when you're 50, it really doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And so I think that it's probably powerful for us to go ahead and define choice a little bit, because when we talk about choice, it's as simple as in the moment saying, like you said, I'm going to get up at 6 and instead of popping a beer, I'm going to read a page. And, I have a couple of friends who are in AA, and they talk about things as just being one step at a time, because there are some days where that's the only thing you can handle, and some days you're going to make the I was going to say good choice, bad choice, but I want to reframe that. I wanted to say it out loud because that's where we go. But the reframe is, there's the choice that takes you closer to what you want, and there's the choice that takes you further away from what you want. And when I'm making choices that are going further away from what I want because I'm choosing comfort in the moment, running away from the pain, hiding a little bit, whatever that soothing habit or behavior is, it doesn't mean that I've lost. Because if I am making choices in the direction of where I want to go 51% of the time, it's going to be a slow process, but I am going in that direction. And so this is by no means a message for the person who is watching or listening to be like, you're an idiot. Why do you keep doing that? Because, we do. And like you said before, I love what you said, where you were like, if I continue to look at and exist inside of the shame, inside of the trauma, inside of the feelings that I'm trying to bury, that I'm trying to run away from, that I'm trying to just get just a little break. I just want a little break. But a little break becomes too much when we don't keep what's important in our mind's eye, when we don't realize that that's the price that we're paying,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And that is a huge struggle for people with really not just addiction, but any kind of mental illness. Or I don't know, depression, anxiety, bipolar, PTSD, all of those, mental illnesses, anxieties, all the things, right? That's a huge problem for people like that, because in the moment, right, we're not thinking 10 steps ahead. We're not thinking of tomorrow's podcast with Aaron, or next week's, ball game with our kids, or whatever. And we're thinking, oh my gosh, today was literally just the worst day. I can't believe I got fired. I need a drink. Right. And then for the alcoholic or the addict in us, they say, oh, you're right. You do need a drink, Hope. You should absolutely enjoy a beverage this evening. And then she has the beverage. And then that little alcoholic brain says, oh, you don't need to do that podcast next week. You're not feeling great. You just had a really bad day. Right. And then it just continues. And it's that little tiny voice. Right. And, for people with mental illness, I think that, and it's not just the alcoholic brain, we all have a voice inside of our head, even people without mental illness. Let me rephrase that. Everybody has a voice inside of their head.
Yes.
Okay. And unfortunately, we don't always, I don't want to say we can't always choose our thoughts. Sometimes our thoughts can be pretty automatic and like random, right? And we're just like, well, where did that come from? Right. But we get to choose if we're aware. Right. And we get to choose how often we're aware, and we get to choose if we practice awareness. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And recognizing that was a big shift for me. That was huge for me. I always thought I was pretty smart, right? Like I always thought I was pretty intelligent. But when I started to look at my own brain and the way that I behave, the way that I think, why I behave the way I do, why I respond to certain things the way I do, I got a whole lot smarter, right? Like I wasn't just book smart now, right? It's like it's this level of being
Mm-hmm.
that is, I don't know if everybody actually gets to that level in life. And then
Mm.
sometimes I wonder that because I see so many examples, and it's really sad when I think about it, but I see examples of people who, and I know I have family like this, right? Who live the day to day. They're constantly angry or upset about something. And yes, they drink, but they're just really negative people. And they're in their 80s, right? And I'm like, did you live your whole life like that? Right? And I'm like, man, did they have that level of awareness? Did they ever choose to look at those things?
I don't think
It's
that
so
they actually know to, because um, I when I was in my 20s and 30s, I drank a lot. And I don't know that I ever got to the point that I would have called myself an alcoholic, but I was pretty fucking close. Um, it was, I saw a meme on Facebook the other day. It's like, oh, the millennials, they call in sick if they had 2 beers the night before. And, Gen X, we were out at the bars until 5 a.m., getting up at 6 and sliding in smelling like alcohol with club stamps still on our hands. And it's true. I did
yeah.
that. I'm not going to say I'm necessarily proud of it, but one of the things that I did was I toughed it out to break the habit of drinking, but I didn't understand the underlying structure of choice. And so I kind of didn't fill that response in with anything. I just toughed through it. And that
Yeah.
is an option. I mean, you are
Yeah.
going to save your life by doing it in that way, but at the same time, you're just going to pick up another habit that's going to fill that gap that might kill you a little bit more slowly, like overeating, being overweight, not taking care of yourself, becoming a recluse, any number of things. And then, of course, mental illness isn't like, there are some kinds of mental illness that it's a chemical imbalance in the brain because of how you were born. More often, it's some sort of a faulty response with how you are choosing to live life based on traumas that you experienced when you were very young. And I know
Hmm.
my mother experienced dementia for the last 5 years of her life, and I am pretty sure that it's because she didn't deal with all of those ghosts and demons as she went through. She toughed it out, and when she got to the end, her brain started disconnecting in certain ways. And the things that she would say and would, the experience that people had of her was more like this fear based, anger filled kind of a space. So it's like you might think that you're getting away with something in the moment, but you're really not. Um,
Yeah.
there is always a price. Whether you pay that
Yeah.
price early on and then enjoy the rest of the space that you have on the planet, or you pay a really hefty price with the last several years of your life.
Yeah. So this brings up a really good point. So it's kind of how we touched on this right when we started talking at first, was like there's a million ways to get what you want, right? Like there's a million ways to get whatever result you're after, right? Um Toughing it out is, I have two opinions on this because part of me is very much like, yeah, just tough it out, get through it. You're a big girl, you can do it. Like, get over yourself, right? Because I'm a little brash like that. I could be a little bit aggressive, in that sense. But the other half can acknowledge, right, that yes, you can tough it out, but you need to understand why you're toughing it out. Because if you never actually learn the lesson, you're just going to keep toughing it out
Mhm.
over and over and over again, and it never gets easier, right? And then in terms of authenticity, this whole tough it out situation, um we see this online, right? We see this is very Instagram-esque, where you see the guys at the gym and they're, showing off their muscles, right? But what we didn't see was them toughing it out, was them running so hard and so long that they collapsed after, running on the treadmill. Or we don't see how little they're actually eating. We don't see the dark corners of maybe them shooting up steroids, right? We don't see those moments, right, on Instagram. And today, which is what I'm so passionate about, is like I can get on a podcast and talk to you about my, who I used to be and the terrible things that I did, right? But in this open and loving and safe space, even though it's for the world to see, and not, not everybody is safe, but I am safe expressing myself because you can't take that away from me, right? That I own that. That's my power, right? And so now we're in this world where we are talking about mental illness, we are talking about addiction, we are talking about the power of choice and these really hard topics that nobody used to discuss. Right? It would be like taboo, it would be like forbidden, right? And we're now this digital age is bringing it's it's really bringing the worst out of the best people, which is good, and it's bringing the best out of the worst people, which is also good, if that makes any
Definitely.
sense.
No, we live in a very interesting time because, like, with anything, you can take things to extremes. Um, and it's like one of the things that I got probably a year ago was I keep thinking that the goal is to get to the end, like to find the finish line and to win. Like, how does the human race win? And I got the insanity of that idea because every generation is a brand new generation that builds on top of the losses and the successes of the previous generation. And so there is no end. Each each generation gets to figure out how to be human inside of a similar but novel space. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's kind of like every generation is like, no, we figured it out. And then the next one that comes after it is like, no, you fucked it all up and we need to rip it up and change it. And it's like, but it was all just like, we got it. It's like, yeah, but like that is actually the point of life, is the getting of it. Until
Yeah.
I actually am getting it, then like, and it's kind of like the Indian form of Buddhism, they talk about the Saha world, which is the illusion that this is. And it's like, this table is real, this camera is real, this podcast is real, I'm real, every aspect of this is real. But what the game that we're playing isn't real. There's no point. But at the same time, the point is what I make of it. So can I take this ride and create something that is my unique expression, that is my purpose, that brings me joy, that allows me to experience the struggles and the challenges and still feel whole and complete. This
Yeah.
is the game that we're playing, really, at the end of the day. Inside of a black and white context, being an alcoholic is a death sentence. Like, I fucked it up. I need to hit the reset button. Like, where's the point in that?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It kind of goes back into that whole like power of choice, right? And like we don't realize that um, I think that, you know, in my experience so far, and I'm relatively young. I'm 33, right? So I still have life to live. I'll be 33 next week. I hope I still have lots of life to live, right? I hope I live to be, in my 90s. But, I'm relatively young, but one of the things that I guess I'm really really grateful that I've learned is that there is no end destination, right? Like, and when we say we talked earlier about like wanting all the things, right? Or like wanting having everything we want and like obtaining, that maybe it's the success or maybe it's the, I don't know, new car or the college education or the whatever, right? Whatever it is, it's the obtainment of the thing that we want, right? That is going to matter when we're 93. right? And when we're telling our kids, like, this is what happened in my generation, this is how I got to where I was, this is my story, these are the things that I felt, these are the things that I heard and saw, because that's it. Because we don't even know if Earth is going to exist in the next 50 million years, right? Like, it's that wild. We're so small, and so powerful at the same time. We are
Yeah.
infinitely powerful, and we have these infinite experiences, and we're playing a very finite game, right? Of getting to the next thing, the next level, the next success, da 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 da. And it can feel really good to have what you want. It feels really good that I have like my little white picket fence, and I'm sober, and now I have like a real clear head, and I'm a good mom, and I've got all these things. It feels great. But that's not where it ends. It's just beginning now, right? It's just beginning from a new point. And I'm really grateful that that's a lesson that I learned relatively early. I'm glad that I'm not, 50 years old and still sitting at the bar, or 50 years old without my baby, never having children, right? And never having that experience. Um, but, I never would have known that if I didn't go through what I went through, if I didn't make all those choices, right?
Mm.
Every choice has led to where we are today. Good, bad, ugly, neutral, right? It all
Yeah.
matters. It all matters on some level. And it also all doesn't really matter on some level, because it's just a journey.
I think that I love this conversation, and there are going to be some people that are going to be like, well, which is it? I don't get it. Does it matter? Does it not matter? Is it about the choice or is it not about the choice? You're talking in circles. And yes, technically we are. But
Hmm.
the truth of the matter is, like, the journey is what prepares you for the experience. Um, when I went to the Millionaire Mind Intensive, one of the trainers shared this story of this father is walking along with his little girl, and they see an ice cream store, and she says, "Daddy, I want ice cream." And he, like being a good father, takes her into the ice cream store and walks up and, picks her up and shows her the different flavors. And she says, "Oh, I want, the bubble gum." And the guy goes over and he does the scoop and hands her the ice cream cone. And the kid looks up and sees a poster of a triple scooper, and she says, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy, I want one of those." Well, being a good father, is he going to give it to her? No, because she's going to drop it before she gets out of the store. She can't handle it. She's 5. So we get to practice and grow into and evolve. And the more I begin to allow myself, because, very often we like to compartmentalize the bad stuff and kind of put it in boxes and never go back. The more I let myself take a look and see, like, what did I learn from that? What did I get from that? What could have been the lesson that I might not have seen then? How can I take a look at where and how I grew that have created me today, that gives me an ability, a skill, or some way of being that I can use to contribute to life, the universe, and everything. And it's when I can do both, and when I can see that it is my responsibility, my ability to respond to situations. And I get to practice, because I've been practicing Buddhism for 23 years. And it's like, oh, just sit in front of this little scroll with these Japanese characters, and, you'll get what you want. And I'm like, okay, I'm seriously impatient. Like, I'm going to chant for patience. Well, when you chant for patience, you don't get patience. You get the opportunity to practice patience. And so when that asshole cuts you off on I-95, that's what you prayed for. Fuck. Like, that's not fair.
Right.
I don't get the muscles by just sitting there looking at the dumbbells that I bought. It's not going to work.
Right. Right. And it all it is what you make it, right? So if you're, listening to this and you're like, well, I don't know what choices I could have made differently, and I don't know what my choices mean, and like you're really sitting there like kind of getting shitty about this. It's whatever you make it. Because all this is your perception of reality. right? So if you desire a perception of reality that is full of abundance, that has a lot of prosperity, that has a lot of love and have, wealth, um, health, happiness, like joy, laughter, if you desire all of those things or those perspectives on life, right? You get to choose that, and you just actively make a choice to see things in a light of abundance, in a light of joy, in a light of learning, in a light of growth, in a light of whatever. You do get to choose that. It's just about how you make it what you want it to mean. Like
Yeah.
whatever something means to you, it's because you made it mean something, right?
Yes, and one of the things that they have proven scientifically, I love bringing up this fact because like our brain is constantly processing data, inputting. Like the skin is the largest organ of the body, the eyes are always working, the ears are always working, the tongue is always working, the nose is always working. It's not like they stop when you focused on something else. If you actually drop down into your feet right now, you'll feel if your shoes are too tight or if your socks are soft or if your little toe itches. Like it's there. You're choosing whether to focus on it or not. And from a statistical standpoint, the human brain has the capacity of processing something insane like 30 million bits per second of data. But
Yeah.
conscious awareness is like 20 to 30 bits per second. So a minute little sliver. And couple that with the idea, like what we were talking about earlier, 150 years ago, we were worried about predators jumping on us when we went to the outhouse in the middle of the night. We don't have that concern anymore, but the brain evolves over thousands of years. And so the brain is constantly dialing into what's the threat. If I'm only using these 20 to 30 bytes of these 30 million bytes to focus on, well, she's looking at me funny. Well, he said something that I just don't like. Well, look, there was a shadow over there. Then that creates a certain chemical soup inside of the body. It creates a perspective that, like, that's how we get a hold of what we focus on. Because it's really easy to say, well, just focus on gratitude. And it's true, but when the lizard brain takes over because you're afraid of something, it's not as easy to do. And that's when you end up in front of the refrigerator or on the bar stool or at the crack house or, whatever your poison, in front of Netflix, wasting more time.
Yeah.
It's something that really takes awareness and conditioning because you've been conditioned to focus where you do focus. So how do you shift?
Yeah. I I wish that there was like a magic formula, a magic potion, right? Like a poster from seventh grade that we always see on the wall, right? Like, you can do it. Like, here's, do these three things every day. And like, you know, I wish there was something that easy. And I don't know if I could tell you the like specific moment that I kind of started shifting into a different mindset, into a different belief system, into feeling safe. Um, because with the lizard brain thing, right? We're talking about this animalistic, need for survival, right? And, because when we have fears and all those things, right? That's our brain trying to keep us safe because there's a threat, right? There's something scary is happening. Well, today's scary looks like going online and telling your story. Today's scary looks like asking somebody out on a date. Today's scary is not like, oh, I'm in the middle of the woods at night and like, I have a pouch of berries and like I'm screwed. It's not the same, right? Um, but I wish there was like this magic formula of like how to shift into safety. I'm not like a neurogenics person. I'm not, that's not my area of expertise. I'm sure, there are lots of people that know that answer. I think it really comes from making the choice to choose safety at the very end of it all. Now, I'm sure there's like practices, there's different methodologies, there's hypnosis, there's therapy, there's all the things, right? Um, but I think for me, like, I went to therapy, I did AA, I did NA, I talked to my parents for a lot, and that was a little different because I spent 10 years not talking to them, right?
Wow.
Um, but I really started to feel safe with myself first. Before I felt safe with, other people, I felt safety in here. Like, it's not about them. It really is about me right now. It's about me being healthy. It's about me changing my life. It's about my impact on other people. It's about my choices. And it sounds a little selfish, sounds a little self-centered, but it came from inside for me, personally first, before I started feeling safe, like externally, right? Um, which is very, I don't know if that's a normal response or not. Like, I don't know. I don't think I've ever talked about that, but safety is huge. It's a huge piece of it. And I don't think there's a magic formula. I think you have to want it.
I agree. I didn't mean to box you in. Um, what I hear is really true because at the very end of the day, it is about you feeling safe. But it's not about me making somebody else behave in a way that has me feel safe.
Right.
Because that's one of the mistakes that I see going on in the world at large. We want to make something illegal, or we want to enforce, or we want to go in all of these different ways to try and make somebody stop doing the thing that's hurting me when I'm the one who's really at the core of it, because there's no way to legislate any of that away. It's all a misunderstanding based on what you choose to focus on. Now, one of the things that you said early on was when you were coming out and, it was like you're getting up at 6 a.m. and you're reading, you had to relearn how to be human. And I have a similar experience when I was working with this one coach, where things were finally starting to come together for me after I, pull all these tools together and I've been all these places. And as I'm working with this coach, I remember one day I got on the phone where I was like, oh my God, I just, whatever it was I was sharing with her. And I felt like a 5-year old handing my mom a crayon drawing. And I'm like, I'm 55 at the time, 55 years old. I feel like an idiot. But then I really started to get that this is what reparenting means. It means that we get to go back and spend the time with ourselves, helping me understand what it is I needed but didn't get. How can I create that safe space so that I
Yeah.
feel free to really explore? And, in my opinion, what I find has worked for me over the years, because what I was doing at the same time as working with that coach was, I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, The Miracle Morning.
Yeah.
So, Miracle Morning is a fantastic way to start to put some of this stuff into practice because it's not religious, it's not political, it's not in a particular direction. It's just, I'm going to take the first X period of time for myself to do these 5, 6 things. Whether it's, a couple minutes in silence, a few minutes journaling, you read a page of something inspirational, and you're actually feeding into yourself some of the things that you may never have gotten previously in your life. Because if I'm throwing seed on ground that is barren, nothing's going to grow. I've got to start from someplace. And sometimes it's just a book, it's a podcast, it's a video, it's something that touches me and reaches me that helps me see that I thought I was right about that, but maybe there's something worth investigating just a little bit further.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you know, I'm trying to like think about. I went to rehab 3 times, which I think I've told you before. Um, but if you're listening, you probably didn't know that. um, so I went to rehab 3 times, and each time I went, I developed a different set of coping mechanisms and habits, right? And like I got to choose who I was becoming each time that I went, right? And so I started, it was just little by little, I would pick up these little habits. Something as simple as like making your bed in the morning. I know that for a normal person, right, they're like, it doesn't matter if you make the bed, or maybe they're like, you should be making the bed every day, whatever, personal preference. But for an addict or an alcoholic or somebody who's really struggling with depression, anxiety, mental health, all those things, that is a big fucking deal. And it's a big fucking deal to take a shower, to take care of yourself for basic human necessities, right? Is like, did you brush your teeth today? Right? Did you take a shower today? Did you eat? Did you drink a bottle of water at least, right? Like it sounds really silly, but those are the small things that make humans human, right? We eat, we take showers, we go out into the world and we buy our groceries and we come home, or like we sit down and we watch Netflix. Like there are people that they don't make it out the door, right? Before a mental breakdown, right? It's like it's so wild, but it's these little things, right? And the other piece of learning how to be a human, right? A lot of that for me was being connected, like genuinely connected with somebody, because I hid from people for so long and I was so afraid to develop relationships because fear of abandonment, right? Bad experiences from the past and trauma, also just fear of rejection, fear of you know, confrontation. Like I had all these different reasons, right? I had all kinds of reasons for not wanting to connect with people, right? But at the end, it was just scary, right? It was just scary to put myself out there. Like I was just scared. And that's okay too. But to become more human, to move out of that cycle of, you know, wake up, drink, go to bed, wake up, drink, go to bed, and like that whole time, or to remove myself from that cycle, I had to tell somebody I was in the cycle first,
Mm,
right? And they had to be honest with me and I had to be honest with them. And then each time that something was coming up that I didn't really want to deal with, if I could go find somebody to tell and say it out loud to, it went away. It got easier, right? It got clearer. It got less overwhelming. It was less like this big cloud hanging over me, right? For some people, you know, even and I don't know, everybody's perspective is different, right? But for some people there's this big cloud looming over their head, and it might be generalized anxiety disorder, or it might be a fear of failure, or it might be a fear of being a bad parent or a bad father or a bad mom, or that feeling of never being good enough, right? And that cloud stays there, um, until you have awareness of it, until you look it in the eye, right? And then for me, it was the connection piece. It was like telling somebody that the cloud existed at all, and then hearing what they had to say, because they didn't see that cloud when they looked at me and I didn't know that.
yeah,
And that was so important to me to hear, that that's not what other people saw in me. It's just what I saw in me.
yeah.
I'm tearing up. I'm getting emotional. Oh my goodness. But
That's
it's
okay.
just it's wild.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
I love that you are sharing yourself so vulnerably and so deeply.
Yeah.
It's
I think
awesome.
it's important. It's really important. And you know, I feel so good about being able to talk to you, and we have a friendship and we have a relationship, so it feels so good to be comfortable with somebody that, and then be able to share this with other people too. It's so good. I'm telling you, the connection, the authenticity stuff, that's like, that is it for me. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and that's a big reason why I am creating this platform, because I think that it's so easy to get caught up in the Instagram kind of a mentality where I'm the only one who doesn't have my shit together. I'm the only one who's so far behind. I was watching something a couple months ago, and they were saying about all of these young girls that all of a sudden go to like Dubai and they take pictures, and where do they get the money? Well, somebody paid them $50,000 to buy their virginity and is paying for their trip. So you might be envious of that young lady, but she just got banged by a group of Arab men who are paying her a lot of money just for that experience so that she can put on her Instagram how lucky she is. Now, if it's something that she enjoys, fantastic, but no, that's not what I would choose. So I think it's really vital that we are real with what we've been through. I did a course where part of it was on a ropes course. I don't know if you're familiar with those. So a ropes course is where you like climb a telephone pole and you do these stupid, insane, crazy stuff. And I'm a little overweight and I'm a little out of shape and I'm a little older. And I was like, no, I've done ropes once before. That was good enough for me. I know I can, so I don't have to. And my coach is like, well, maybe it's like you've done it before, then it means you can do it. I'm like, yeah, but that was 15 years ago and this is now. And, no, thank you. So her encouraging me, you can do it, really made no difference. But when one of the other coaches walked up and she's throwing up and crying and she was just like, she was a hot mess. And I was like, what's wrong with you? Are you? She's like, I just did the big one and it was awesome and I'm scared as shit. But like I looked at that and went, I can relate to that. Like, so, all right, fine, I'll do it. The Pollyanna polished stuff is just, it's not, it might be real. There may be some people like Ned Flanders in the world, but the reality is we're all struggling with something. The question is, what is it that you're struggling with? And even if you're not broadcasting it on social media by going on a podcast where you're going to talk about how fucked up you are, like, have somebody to talk to. There's got to be some kind of a support network. And for the longest time, I never had one because I was really led to believe that I wasn't worth it, that I didn't matter, that I didn't deserve it. And that wasn't a lesson that people instilled in me intentionally. They did it without intention. They did it to take the pressure off in their own lives. And I just have the kind of personality where I internalized it to a level where I boxed myself in and there was nothing and no one left. And so I think that it's super powerful for people to share. You don't have to you don't have to hang your ass out on the internet like I tend to do, but you
Yeah,
know,
it's not about airing your dirty laundry and just
right.
like laying it all out on the gram for everybody to see, but it's about being honest about the topics, right? And even just if you don't want to go all the way in, right? If you want to just dip your toes and see how people respond, because the truth is like there's topics that people don't talk about. In entrepreneurship, there's this weird in between land where you're not cool enough to sit at the cool kids table, but you're not a baby anymore, right? And so there's this weird in between land where you're not with the seven figurepreneurs and you're not really like at like the six figurepreneurs because some of them are hanging with the sevens, and like it's just there's like a middle school age in entrepreneurship, and then you're awkward and you're weird and you're kind of lonely, and like it's you feel like you're alone, right? But the truth is that you're not. Like there's, I don't know, thousands of other people who feel exactly the same way that you do,
Yeah.
right? And there's also just this level of honesty, like not everybody's marriage is perfect, right? How many times do people fight, right? And we have fights over dumb shit, right? Or like we have moments where we're really selfish. Like I can be a very selfish person. I have selfish moments a lot, right? I'm going to be very frank about that. But, it's being able to admit that stuff so that other people don't feel so alone because they feel it too. So if you think that you're I don't want to this is coming from I don't this is a maybe it's not maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. So you know how people have people have specialitis, like they think they're special. They think that they're the only ones going through this thing, or that their situation is so unique that they could never get the result. Their situation is so unique that they can't do something, right? Like that specialitis, I guess is what I would call it. You're not. Your situation is not unique. You're part of the collective here. We're all just humaning and we're all just trying to do our best. Okay. So show me that you have a dirty laundry room, right? Show me that your kid's face is a mess, right? And that he doesn't eat with the fork with the right way. Like he shovels his food, right? Show me that stuff so that I can feel the feelings of feeling seen and heard. Because at the end of the day, that's all we want. Everybody just wants to feel seen and heard.
That is absolutely true. Yes, I agree 100%. So, wow, we are just about at an hour. I would say this has been a fantastic conversation. We've laid a lot of stuff out there. The question that I have for you is there a final thought, something that you would like to leave the people watching and listening with to focus on, some sort of a direction you'd like to send them?
I knew you were going to ask this question and I didn't prepare.
It's not supposed to be prepared.
um, wow. Well, we really talked about so much. I just, I think the biggest thing is just know that it's a whole journey. Just know that it's about the journey. It is not about you can have everything you want, but it's about getting there, right? Because those are the moments that you remember, right? Those are the moments that shape who you become, who you are, who are you transitioning into, who you used to be, like all of that stuff. It's the process, right? And yeah, we see this all the time. Trust the vision, trust the process. And I know it sounds cliche, but it's true, right? Because the people that you're going to meet during that process are going to change your life. The moments that you're going to have sitting with yourself, the thoughts that you're thinking, the new awarenesses, the new ideas, all that stuff is part of the process. And
Yes,
that's the stuff that's really important.
it's true. And it's the dog barking in the background and the cat trying to get into the shot and playing with the
I'm,
cardboard. And I'm pointing this out just because like they're gonna hear the dog barking and they're gonna
I've been,
realize the
I
microphone
don't
that
know.
I'm using is not the same as it normally is on the podcasts. And sometimes you need to just get shit done in spite of the world conspiring to fuck it up.
I told everybody in my house this morning. See, I said it. I said, I'm going to record a podcast. Can you make sure that everybody is quiet and everybody is good? And
Somebody
nobody
locked the
listens to
dog
me.
up. So just do it anyway. Find the support, have the conversation. You are not the only person that it happens to. And yeah, if you're ever looking for a powerful authentic marketing coach, Hope is absolutely amazing. She pulls no punches, you can tell that. Um, Find someone that you can talk to, find a philosophy that you can relate with, find a book that resonates. Stop watching the stuff that continues to perpetuate the doom. Pick at least one thing that kind of steps you out and just start replacing little bits at a time, because really, at the end of the day, you are responsible for saving yourself. You are responsible for the choices that you make, and you get to start someplace. And if it's only cutting out one soda a week, or not watching, watching one less YouTube video on whatever your own particular flavor of doom is, like, do that. So, Hope, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining. Oh, one other point. We did this last week in its entirety, and the recording didn't come out. So that's another thing. Just, okay, great. This is where we are. What do we get to do next?
It's the journey. So I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you more than what I would have. So, it's a win-win. It's fine. It's just part of it.
I think even like with the way it went, this conversation is like, I enjoyed our other conversation, but this one has been far better, I think. So
this one was juicier. This one was more vibey. There's a vibe here.
Yeah, I might throw some clips out from the 20 minutes of the other one that I did get, but we'll work it out. Anyway, thank you. It's been a pleasure. And thank you. What's your dog's name?
Ace.
Thank Ace for contributing to the conversation. All right, and thank you, the viewer, the listener, for playing with us all the way until the end. If you happen to be on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you are listening to this as a podcast, follow the podcast on whatever platform you prefer to consume your podcasting material. And I want to thank you again. This is The Secret of My Success, exploring what it means to live a fulfilling life under any circumstances. I am your host, Erin Curran. Until next time.